Good afternoon, how's your day been? Welcome back to Gooner Fanzine TV. I'm absolutely honoured to have a really special guest with us today. Daughter of a true Arsenal legend and a lovely bloke to boot, Geordie Armstrong. We've got Jill Armstrong today. We're going to just sort of talk about his life and career, and obviously he's sort of, you know, him being your dad as well.
Yeah, so, well, we've got plenty of stories to say
absolutely,
about that.
Brilliant. I mean, first of all, for anyone that doesn't know Geordie Armstrong, well, you should to start with, but if you don't, he is one of the players on the walls at the Emirates outside. I mean, that must make you feel so...
Yeah, it's amazing. I went to a club supporters do on Saturday night, and it was unbelievable, because you think you're going in there and your dad's up there. It never ceases to kind of like bring a lot of emotion up, you know. It's lovely, and it's great for the grandchildren because they obviously never knew him.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
In terms of with such a social media to start with, you run a Twitter account,
yes.
Touch of Powder, honouring your father's memory. Yeah. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, he started, I think 2014. It's gradually grown quite considerably, and all I really do is put pictures of Dad or the double team or people connected to, you know, our lives. And it is incredible, the people that, you know, like just mourning a picture of Dad, and they're like, you know, it makes them feel good because they remember old times. They remember, you know, days that they went with their father or their grandfather or their uncle. You know, it was special times, and I think, you know, it makes people feel good. And obviously that my dad was, you know, the most social kind of happy-go-lucky type of person anyway. He would love that. It's, you know, really positive. And yeah, it just makes us all feel good, and it's lovely to remember Dad, and it's good for the grandchildren because it keeps his legacy going, because obviously it's 19 years soon. And you know, it's nice because they didn't know him, so
absolutely. I know we follow each other on Twitter, and it certainly puts a smile on my face every morning. But I mean, your dad, everyone who's ever come across him, as far as I know, and obviously from what you've told us, absolutely loved him. He was a really down-to-earth man. If we sort of talk about his sort of origins and how he came to be at Arsenal, he was obviously born in Hebburn in the North East, wasn't he?
Hebburn, County Durham, and he came from a big family. He was the youngest, 6 brothers and 2 sisters, I mean, by all accounts, two of the other brothers, Uncle Joe and Uncle Norman, were really good footballers as well, but they didn't kind of carry on. Dad obviously had such a passion. I mean, even we read letters from, you know, people that went to school with him. He was just an athlete in every way. He played cricket, played tennis. You know, he was very active, loved to swim. You know, growing up as well, obviously having a father that did all these things, you know, he was quite annoying because you never want to play him against anything because he always won. And my brother used to have a lot of kind of like, you know, sort of, you know, competition with him, But obviously that came from coming from a big family. But yeah, his passion was, you know, obviously football.
And I know you've got a letter there from George Swindon, who signed him as a youngster in August '61, was it?
Yes, I mean, basically, I don't know if you want to read that. I've got my glasses on.
So this is a letter from George Swindon, who was Arsenal manager at the time, writing to Mr. G. Armstrong, 9 Kipling Avenue, Hebburn and Tyne. Dear Geordie, I did not realise until I made inquiries today that you had left Highbury yesterday without drawing any expenses. I'm therefore enclosing herewith £5, no shillings, and
something like that.
In old money. The same as you were paid in the previous week. We're looking forward to your return and to your joining us as a professional player, and I feel you have a good future and you should do very well in professional football. If you would let me know the date of return, and I would like, if possible, for you to be back in time to play for us next Saturday, 26th of August, then I can get Mr. Mail, was that George Mail, wasn't it?
George Mail.
To forward a railway ticket to you. I look forward to hearing from you in the very near future. Good wishes and kind regards, yours sincerely, manager, and that's obviously George Swindon.
Yeah, George Swindon.
That's incredible, isn't it?
I know, it's wonderful, amazing. And the seal and everything. It's so kind of like the Arsenal, isn't it? It kind of symbolises the class system that, you know, everybody kind of like adhered to, really, and it's very much part of my life, you know, my dad's respect for the club.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? I mean, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
He was a real Arsenal legend. He was there man and boy, wasn't he?
Yes, I mean, he played, I think he left in 77, and obviously he went back and was reserve team manager for 10 years, I think, before obviously he collapsed and died. But yeah, no, he loved the Arsenal. I mean, even when we moved away, when we lived in Norway, it would always be Arsenal's results he was checking on, you know, it would always be that one game he'd watch. You know, it's just something that was in him, and funny enough, growing up, us, you know, as kids going down to Arsenal, we always had to dress up.
Right.
Well, I won't say dress up, we were never allowed to wear jeans.
Yeah.
We had to wear, you know, smart, you know, clothes, because you were representing the Arsenal.
Yeah.
Always.
So it's definitive art.
Oh yeah, yeah. Even till this day, I address it that way. Brilliant. Because to me, that is what it is. The Arsenal. You know, there's no other way to address the club. And you know, we all have a love, obviously, for it. I mean, like I say, we went down from very young. Like I say, my mum was pregnant when she used to watch the games, watch Dad with me, and then it would subsequently from a baby. And you know, it would actually go into you know, obviously us growing up and going down there, and you know, every Saturday, well, not every Saturday, every home game we would be there, and you know, it's incredible. And we would sit in a certain, you know, obviously I can't remember the seat numbers, but the fans surrounding it had to be very aware, because if they started to call my dad, there would be a war. Because my auntie used to say she would be going, if she could hear somebody calling Dad, she would be slowly going down in her seat, because my mum straight away, what did you say? And that would be it, you know. And my brother would be upset, I would be crying, you know. And I mean, obviously that they weren't bad at all. I mean, to be fair, Dad was well loved, so you know, it wasn't really a huge issue, but you know, obviously very protective. So obviously it became a thing, like don't sit near the Armstrongs, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And there's a wonderful story about your mum and having sort of met your dad early on. I think they started courting or something.
Yeah, when they were first dating, I think they went out with my mum's sister and her husband, and you know, Dad had a car. He took them to a nice restaurant, and you know, paid for it. And my auntie actually turned around to my mum and said, "What, your boyfriend, what does he do?" She said, "I don't know." She goes, "Well, he's just come back from Switzerland. Is he a smuggler?" Because obviously they had no idea. I mean, my mum didn't even know what a footballer was. I mean, my grandfather was told by somebody who'd seen mum and him out, mum and dad out, and had said, "Do you know that Marge is going out with a footballer?" And he told mum, and mum's like, "Well, what's that?"
Yeah.
You know, had no idea. You know, obviously, you know, she came from, well, they both did, you know, obviously from the sort of working class families, and then going into that kind of life was probably quite a shock in a way for mum as well, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, having met your mum at the Hitchintown Arsenal a couple of years ago, she's an absolutely wonderful lady. So huge respect to that.
It's been hard, you know, in them days as well. I'm not saying everybody, but mum was, you know, a housewife at home. She was there. She, you know, she didn't want to do anything. She wanted to be there for Dad, or whenever he came back or whatever. That was the way she was. So obviously when he died, you know, her life just, you know, it's very hard, you know, to sort of think that somebody actually just goes to work and they die, and that's it. You know, there's no warning. You know, this man was totally fit. He'd had an operation a couple of years before, you know, sports injury. He went back to have a checkup. It was Mr. Hamlin, you know, the famous surgeon, and he said, "Geordie, you're 6 weeks ahead of recovery." He was that fit. So, you know, when we got that phone call from Arsenal, I think it was Colin Lewin, though I'm 100% certain, because obviously some of it's a bit blurry, but when we got that phone call to say that he's collapsed, you know, we didn't actually take it overly, I know that sounds stupid, but overly serious, because we thought, oh, he'd be fine, maybe it's just, but then obviously, you know, it became more, you know, obvious as we, you know, as the day progressed, you know, how serious it was. And obviously more stories have come out about, you know, from the players that were there, what had happened. But, you know, I mean, he would have loved that. I mean, he died on the training pitch with his players, technically. I mean, I know he's pronounced dead later on, but obviously, technically speaking, he died, I think, on the pitch.
Absolutely, and then the respect and love he was held in is testament to him and all of you, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. I mean, it obviously does help so much because, it's quite hard because your life was football as well.
Yeah.
Because what people think to realise is when you've had somebody that's, especially predominantly Arsenal, though football, Dad was never out of football.
Yeah.
Briefly when he had a pub in Leicester, but he'd always some way or another be connected to football in some way.
Yeah.
So for whether it was other teams when we were in Norway or whether when we were in Kuwait, or where he was at Villa or Fulham, he's he was in football all his life, but Arsenal obviously was always the love.
Yeah.
It was hard because obviously when he died, you kind of like lose that aspect of your life as well, which is hard when it's something that somebody you loved, and it was your, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so I mean, the club are great. I mean, we can go down when we want, and great. And Dad has lots of amazing things at the Emirates, as obviously he's one of them up on the
that's again,
and on the bridge.
Yes.
I think it's Fisman's.
Yeah. I mean, obviously talking about his career, he had a long and varied career for a lot of teams, but Arsenal was the dominant club, really, the club of his life.
Yeah.
So in sort of terms of George Swindon left, it wasn't a particularly good time for Arsenal in the early 60s.
No.
Billy Wright took over. And obviously with sort of Sir Alf Ramsey's Wingless Wonders, he was sort of said to be the best player who never played for England.
I know, and it's quite a sensitive issue with us because Dad was never really a person that he would never brag, or he was very humble. I mean, I remember growing up thinking that he's obviously a great player, but not to the level that he was, because he never ever sang his praises. He never made himself out to be anything special, if that's the word to use. He was always like, oh well, this one's better, or this one's that, or that one. Or he was a great player. He was very kind of humble. It wasn't him at all. If he'd been a little bit more I don't know, flamboyant, or whether things would have changed, but then he wouldn't have been the person he was. So but I know that they did talk of him going away with the England team, and I think he was capped a few times for the under 23s.
Yes,
and we've got a couple of caps at home. But never to sadly not.
And in terms of Arsenal, obviously Billy Wright left. Bertie Mee, the physio, took over. And I think the team lost the League Cup in 68 and 69, and they used that as motivation to kick on, didn't they? Because they were a really strong unit, that squad, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and that obviously progressed all the way through. I don't think, unless you've actually been in the company of that, especially the double teamers, they're amazing. They had such a close bond that, I mean, there's actually a YouTube on YouTube. I think it was when they called it the Double Chasers in '98 when they were due to. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I've not seen it. I saw a lot of games.
Well, they did an interview. I think it was actually for the build up to the game, and they talked to Charlie, Frank, Bob, and Dad. And the banter they had, joking around and laughing about, and that's how they always were. I mean, even all I ever remember is, great memories of them all tormenting me, teasing me and joking around as they did. I was very shy and, kind of like nervous around a lot of it, because we used to wait in the team room when they used to come back from games. From the game, to come in. Dad was always the last one out. They would literally be stacking the chairs. No word of a lie. Too busy chatting. He did that all his life.
He loved it, by the sound of it. He loved being in football. He loved the Arsenal.
Well, do you know what? Funny enough, in '98, he missed a team bus. He was meant to go back to Saltwell House with the team. He was too busy chatting that we came back on the family bus, and the bus driver was getting frustrated because the family had to be back in time as well. And they were all chanting, there's only one Geordie Armstrong, and he was caught up with a load of fans just chatting, and they're like, Geordie, come on, you must womber. what I've heard on Twitter a couple of times, that he was often on the tube because
really?
he missed the
Wow.
bus.
Yeah.
It was always the same.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So obviously the season prior to
Yeah.
the 71 double winning side, 69-70, Armstrong won the Fairs Cup that year. That was a sort of burgeoning of all the talents and the sort of core strength as well. And then your dad won Player of the Season for Armstrong.
Yeah, he
didn't
did.
As well?
Yeah, he was. I mean, they said he was outstanding that time. And there's actually a lovely picture which I particularly like of my mum and dad.
Fantastic. Yeah. With the Arsenal Player of the
Yeah.
Year series.
Yeah.
So, lift that
And
up
that
a
was
sec. Have you seen that? It's fantastic. It's Geordie Armstrong and mum,
Yeah, that was lovely. Yeah.
And what are your memories? I suppose you're a bit too young.
No, do you know what? It's awful. I really cannot remember anything. I was too young, really. And I mean, it was our normal life. So Dad, I mean, my mum will often tell us stories, I think particularly with my brother, that on the big match, if Dad was on, I think there's one where he's interviewed in the early days, quite young, my brother would go over and kiss the TV, and stuff like that, because it's we would sit there and watch Dad and be a bit confused to why he was on there and he was sitting there. But what can I say? It's hard because it was your life. You were it was normal to us.
Yeah.
I mean, people will say to me, "What was it like to have such a famous dad?" Well, I only had one dad. I don't really know. He was just a normal dad.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
obviously in the terms of football, it's different. I mean, we all our life we grew up with that. I was at school in North London in St Monica's in Cannon Hill, Southgate.
Yeah.
And Dad opened a school fete, and it seemed odd. It did kind of, you'd think to yourself, this is strange. But Usher is the same with anyone. And I mean, he opened, did various charity events. I remember him playing in Dennis Waterman's celebrity team, so we got to meet a lot of people through TV people. I remember thinking it was quite cool at the time. I think he was in the Sweeney or something.
Yeah, Sweeney.
We were fortunate. We got to meet a lot of people through Dad. But Dad was just very down to earth. So he never kind of, if they were nice, they were nice. It didn't matter, what they did. He was never. So obviously we grew up with that, sort of mentality that there are people doing a job. So you're not in awe of anybody. Do you know what I mean? As such.
Absolutely. I mean, there's that wonderful story in the 71 season at the Spurs game when Arsenal won the league at White Hart Lane. There was who's on the coach again? It was,
what happened was I think it was on the I've got a feeling it was on the way there. They were on coaches, and I think it was. I'm sure it was Mum and maybe Barbara. I'm not sure. It was one of the wives.
Yeah.
They were actually helped up onto the bus because of the crowds.
Yeah.
My grandfather, my mum's dad, got lost. They couldn't find him. So when they got on the bus, my mum obviously was really concerned about where Grandad was. So she shouted to Dad. He went to the back of the bus and actually started shouting to the crowd,
because there was
the
literally
supporters.
Inside.
And he was actually saying to them, "We've lost a father-in-law," And then I think they spotted him, and the fans actually took him over their head and passed him over, and he came in the window at the back. And apparently, Mum was saying that Bertie was shouting, "What's going on down there?" And obviously there's nothing.
Nothing.
Because obviously
nothing to see it. Yeah.
But my mum said that was the highlight of my grandfather's life.
Wow.
It really was just so remarkable. And you think about it, how incredible is that?
Yeah.
And I suppose that was a unit, the bond that the supporters and the players had. I think that's probably why they're so well loved.
Yeah.
Because there was that connection.
Yeah.
We would feel it even when we used to come out of games and we used to park around. We come around all the back of sort of Highbury, all the little corridors.
Absolutely.
And back ways down to the car, and you would drive out and stop, and you would have this all on the I always remember that on the windows tapping, and Dad would open the window and he would sign, and we'd be going, "Dad, come on, Dad, 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 Dad," and he would never turn anyone away.
Yeah.
We could wait ages. We'd all get fed up. But that was Dad. He would say, "Look, they want my autograph. I'm not, I appreciate that,
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was just the man he was, and that carried on all his life,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of his his Arsenal career, he stayed till 77.
Yes,
was it 621 appearances, 500 league appearances?
Yeah.
That's
amazing.
And
I think, I mean, he started nearly all the games,
Yeah.
didn't he?
Yeah.
I think bar a few. And in them days, I think Dad virtually played 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It was hardly ever. So, you think he was quite a player to play at that level.
Yeah.
Really, for that many years.
Absolutely, and a hard-working winger as well, not just a sort of winger who stood on the.
Well, that's what I mean. Funny enough, I think they've often said that he would literally cover the whole pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, I think somebody said to me recently, it was only a number 1 shirt he didn't have on. He literally played everywhere.
Yeah.
But that was Dad. He was, growing up, we would be at my, my nan's, and we would have a knock on the door. Geordie coming out for a kick around. And he would literally go out with the neighbours' kids and play football.
Really?
My mum said it happened when she was going out with him. When people actually found out, she would be waiting to go out, and Dad would be outside having a kick around with the local kids.
Oh, fantastic!
But
Imagine
that was him.
Now.
Yeah, I know. But that was him, and the stories that come out, and even just on Twitter, people contact me and say, "I remember this happened," or "Your dad did that," or "Your dad showed me around Highbury." Yeah. He was so proud of the club. He loved the club, so. He was really passionate to share that with people. Yeah. And I think that's, when up on the stadium wall, when they have the quotes underneath. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember all of it now, be down, but it just sums up Dad. He just went out of his way and he just loved it. I mean, he just loved football, just loved Arsenal. Well, especially Arsenal, it's his love. Yeah.
I mean, he obviously touched so many people's lives in just with the smallest acts of generosity and kindness at times. Yeah. But he also knew a lot of sort of big names as well. His testimonial at Arsenal was against Barcelona with obviously Johan Cruyff.
Yeah.
Do you remember that at all? I mean,
no. Do you know what? I wasn't at the game. We were babysat at home. No, we weren't at the game. Well, even I've got pictures here of his dinner as well. Yeah. And Mum and Dad actually had Eric and Julian Morley were the organisers.
So sort of
Miss World.
Yeah.
I mean, it was in Park Lane. It was amazing. I think they had Lovelace Watkins. I put it on Twitter yesterday. It was quite a, by all accounts, an amazing event. As was the game. And actually, I've got footage I tried to transfer. But with the sound wouldn't. It was done through the big match, it was amazing just to see the footage of him and Johan, sort of interacting.
That's very amazing to see.
But Dad, played with some greats, didn't he? When you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That time. So we were, sort of fortunate when we were growing up to meet a lot of people that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And obviously, just in terms of talking about his career, he left Arsenal in '77.
Yes.
And I suppose what people don't understand, if you're a daughter of a famous footballer, they still most of them still stay in football. Yeah. But you move around then, don't you? So Leicester was the next stop after that.
Yeah, we were in Leicester for quite a while. I loved it. Yeah, we loved it. We had a great time. We went to school there. Primary and then on to, I think we left London when I was in year 6, so I had another year or half a year at primary school. Actually, funny enough, my dad coached my brother's football team in Leicester.
Oh wow, excellent. Imagine that.
And they won the league. Yeah. My brother used to moan because he said Dad was always giving him a hard time, but then that would have been Dad. He would feel like he couldn't give you like special treatment.
Yeah, just being fair with everyone.
Yeah. Actually, funny enough, I did some running as well at Saffron Lane and training, and he was helping the others more than me. I was really annoyed, but that was always Dad. Yeah. He gave a bit to everybody. You know. Yeah. Sometimes you felt a little bit left out in a way because he was just generous person. But Leicester we loved. I mean, sadly, he had an injury there. Because you think his whole career at Arsenal, he actually had no problems at all. We spoke to Fred Street recently, and he said that. He said, "You know what? Well, I never saw Geordie in there. Though I do remember going down one day because I actually spoke to him about this recently." And I said, I remember Dad filling up the bath and we had to swim in it. He went, yeah, they all did that. Well, we shouldn't say that. But we did swim in the
the famous hyper bath. Fantastic. We won't tell anyone.
No.
So obviously after Leicester, I think he had a spell at Stockport as well.
Yes, Mike Summerby.
Right, okay, yeah,
brought him in. Yeah. Again, it was coming towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
He wasn't there for very long, and then I think we went to Norway.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a new chapter going to Norway. What was that like?
Fantastic. Yeah. We were in the Arctic Circle. We were in Narvik. Real shock, really, to go. And I mean, funny story is as well. You have to wear thermals because obviously you can imagine the temperatures there. That's how I'm not wearing them. He said, really? Came back, oh bloody hell, I get them on now, because it was that cold. You're talking about minus, temperatures. I think it was minus 12 or something when we arrived.
And what was that like as a child? Or
fantastic, fantastic. My brother and I had private Norwegian lessons, and within 6 months we were fluent, reading and writing in the tent, taking lessons with everyone else. Loveliest people going. Funny enough, I've got a picture here. We had a car that had Mjolnir, which was the team, and it actually had Dad's name on. So we would be driving, and every 5 minutes you'd have beep, 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 beep. Dad didn't realise at first, why is everybody beeping? Of course, they were saying hello.
Oh, fantastic.
And because it was, small place up in, incredible. Everybody really took us to the, in, and it was amazing. We were out all the time, and obviously in the summer, you light nights all the way through, and then in the winter when the sun comes over the mountain, you got half a day off school. We learned to ski. We had a dog that was half Spitz, I think it's like a lap dog, which we brought home actually eventually. Pika, we called her after, which is girl in Norwegian. Okay. It was just a fantastic experience, and
I know. Sorry.
And Per Hedman was the one of Dad's players.
Right. Okay.
Who's the coach of Norway national team.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. And I know that you're still held in absolute respect. You went to the Norwegian.
Last Saturday.
At the Emirates, wasn't it?
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, it was lovely. Yeah. A lot of them obviously remember Dad. Yeah. It's quite strange, really, representing Dad in a way. It's lovely, but it's just lovely the way that people hold him, in their hearts. Really, he kind of touched a lot of people that way. The kind of man he was, and that.
Absolutely. I've just brought to mind a sort of wonderful story you said off camera earlier about Freddie Lundberg and your dad sort of having a joke about sort of Swedish and.
Well, I remember all the ins and outs, but Dad was there when I think Dad picked Freddie up from the airport when he first arrived from Sweden. My brother and I had been to the shopping centre near Colney that day. What's it called? Galleria or something.
Hatfield,
yeah, that one. And we came back because we had the car. We had Dad's car, and we were sitting with Freddie, and Dad was saying, "Oh, Freddie's from Sweden, Snackar du norsk?" And Freddie's like, "Klart svenska, I speak Swedish." And that was like a standard joke all the time that Dad would just say, "Snackar du norsk?"
So they sort of shouted at each other.
But Dad would go on a bit, That was Dad. Oh God! I mean, people would say, "Oh no, Geordie, no," And his jokes were. Bill Graves, who used to be at the Arsenal, he was kit man.
Okay.
And he rang the. I think he was kit man after Tony Donnelly.
Yes, remember Tony Donnelly.
His dad obviously thought the world of him as well. And Bill ran the celebrity Arsenal team.
Right, okay,
Lovely man, lovely man. And he used to tell Dad some really bad jokes, and then Dad would tell him, and they used to say they could hear him coming across the field at Coney, laughing, and they're like, "Oh no, Geordie's got one of his bad jokes." And he was just so loud, Dad. You could hear him from miles away.
And he'd obviously tell you the jokes as well.
Yeah. I mean, he was just such. I mean, obviously he got down. He had quite a tough job, without a doubt, because he's bringing people through, and also had obviously players from the first team that, for various reasons were with him, and there's a lot of changes. But he
always had a smile on his face.
Yeah, I mean, he had such a bond with his players, really did. I mean, like, for example, Ashley Cole, I think he said he started training with Dad around, he was 9, because when George Graham was there, they used to take the youngsters, and Dad used to train, I think it was a Monday night, and Ashley, and he said he used to run home from school so excited because he'd be training with Dad, and that kind of continued all the way through. And I often remember, taking phone calls from him, because Dad was always there for them. I mean, he'd be training, and he'd be with them best part of the day, and then he'd come home and he'd be on the phone to them.
Yeah, so he was almost like a sort of second father to them.
Oh, absolutely. He would have been there, and he always felt kind of, I think, responsible. Like, for example, if they had left the club or whatever, keep in touch with them, hope they do well, or help them out, or like he really did care about them, and he thought the world of them.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a real sense of that, because people like Ray Parlour and Tony Adams still keep in touch with you, certainly.
Well, I mean, Ray, Ray was really kind. He did book signing for us in Cambridge, with Vic. Vic was a very good friend of Dad's. Very good friends. Lovely man, and I suppose they all loved him, and they just said he was a funny character. He had a lot of humour, had amazing stories. You think he had been in football his entire life, like many of them, and worked with a lot of, obviously after Arsenal, he'd worked obviously with Malcolm Allison as a...
that was at Middlesbrough.
Yeah, he was assistant manager. I worked with Malcolm McDonald at Fulham, and Ron Saunders. I remember taking calls from him, and very old school. Yeah. And he worked with... I think Alan Mullery at QPR.
QPR as well,
and often we would be taking phone calls, from all people. Dad, obviously, like many in football, they're respected and their opinions valued. So, it was always the phone constantly going. Constantly, all the time.
I can imagine. I mean, you kindly showed us the sort of book that you had after he sadly passed away, and there were cards from everyone, Man United, even Spurs.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, I think the church holds 500 people, and there was people actually standing, outside. It was just unbelievable. I mean, we didn't know what to expect. Obviously, we were quite in shock. I mean, he just dropped dead basically. It was. Whole world had just was on a spin. It was just the most horrific thing. I mean, just in moments your life changes. So we didn't know what to expect, and Frank talked about Dad. He got up and spoke, and Bob Wilson did a reading, and everybody was there. And it was a very kind of traditional church service, because Dad was quite old-fashioned that way. He liked the tradition of things. And it was just beautiful. It was like as if it was meant to be. I mean, that makes sense. It really went so well. And even the old the policemen, from the matches, they were standing outside when we arrived, saluting. And, we were about to walk in and we saw that. It was just so emotional.
Well, I mean, we're filming it in Cambridge. We're not that far away from the church, and the police actually stopped the traffic, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. It was sectioned off for the day. For so many hours, because obviously Arsenal were coming, and obviously it was a police escort, and it's right in the middle of the city, which obviously, but it was literally everybody was there. It was incredible. There was so much respect for Dad, really.
Absolutely. I know you showed us photos of the flowers at the grave after.
I mean, that was phenomenal. I mean, quite ridiculous, really, that the money didn't go to charity. But like I said at the time, you weren't in this right mind to really have even thought about that. Absolutely. And I think there's more done today for people more aware today to do that. I mean, this is going back 19 years coming up. But I mean, you've got
that's incredible. Turn it around,
literally, it took up the whole churchyard. I mean, it was phenomenal. I mean, the actual I don't know, that one's probably clearer when you think about how many graves are there. I mean, it was just unbelievable.
That's a testament to
it was from everybody all over, and so much it was really amazing. And then obviously Arsenal later on did a pitch for Dad, where actually I think it was roundabout where he collapsed, but that was incredible as well. The stone and the pitch.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll sort of touch on that in a minute, maybe. But going back to his sort of career, after sort of spells in England at various sort of clubs, you had a couple of years in Kuwait, didn't you?
Yeah, we were there for 5 years.
Right, it was 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow. That was sort of in the build up to the Gulf War almost as well.
Yeah,
wasn't
we
it?
came out 6 weeks before the invasion,
Yeah.
but I mean, obviously, we weren't aware of that.
Yeah.
Though there is obviously always tension, because when we actually first went to Kuwait, it was during the Iran-Iraq War. You used to get like shock waves coming over, and the building used to shake. Yeah, but it was, I don't know, it's kind of normal out there, if you know what I mean. And again, we had an amazing time.
Yeah.
We got to meet great people. We became very good friends, though obviously Dad knew Dave Mackay before, and his wife Isabel. Lovely people. There was so many English coaches, and then there was obviously the Eddie Fermani, who was known for coaching. I think it was the New York.
Cosmos,
and
so he would have known Pele.
Yeah, he did. He used to tell us many stories. This is going into another thing. And then obviously you had people like John Cartwright. You had Bobby Campbell was out there. Obviously, Dad knew Bobby Campbell from the Arsenal days.
Yeah, he was Chelsea as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. All lovely. It's great. We had a good life. And Dad actually originally went out there with Malcolm Allison, because obviously they knew each other from Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of unrest in, I think there was some strike that had gone on, and subsequently a lot of them had been sacked. Dad was kept on. He managed another football club, did very well. And then subsequently went on to take over, did the Gulf Cup. He won the Gulf Cup.
Right, yeah, he was successful.
Yeah. He did have a good career out there, to be fair. And it was, it's a totally different way of life. Great experience for us,
Absolutely, and luckily you made it back before the Gulf War, basically.
I know, exactly.
But so then George Graham offered him the role of Arsenal reserve manager. He was obviously, George Graham and Geordie were really good mates from the sort of 71 side, and George obviously never forgot him and pulled him back in, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Dad was really excited to go back to Arsenal. That's it was the club that he loved. It was always part of him. Whenever we went anywhere or whatever, he was always checking results. Even when he was at Arsenal, he was always the Arsenalology. It was obviously he felt like he'd come home, I suppose, in a way. Cause you imagine all the years he was there. It's an incredible amount of years playing, really, at that level. And then to go back, and we back with Pat Rice, lovely man, lovely family, and we saw George, and it was very kind of like you felt like it's very homely, if you know what I mean. You knew everybody, and
there was a real bond there. Wasn't there?
Definitely.
Level.
I mean, actually, on Dad, I've got some pictures here. Dad's 50th. Well, we had George, Stuart, Vic, Pat. They're all singing karaoke together. I mean, so that bond continued. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Absolutely, and then obviously with the sort of Wenger era, Arsenal in 96. Excuse me. Yeah. What was that like? It was a change. I mean, because obviously, I think in between that, Bruce came, didn't he? Bruce re-upped for a year in
94. It was all. I mean, vaguely remember, because obviously it's quite a while ago. But I mean, I think it was like this Arsenal's coming in, and it was new ways, and Dad loved him. Dad really respected him. He had a good relationship with him. That they often would talk about their experiences in different countries. Coaching, managing, and there was a real respect there, I think, and I think Arsenal liked the fact that Dad was very much a through and through Arsenal. But I mean, he's absolutely a wonderful man. I can't say enough good things about him. He really has taken so much care with us. When we've been at Colney, but obviously prior to when he was there, he would come over. He would chat to us. He would make time for us. He would listened to us. He looked like he would really take an interest. And I understand, like my mum, she was, devastated. Well, we all were, but my mum, lost Dad the way she did, and he always showed us so much respect, and that meant the world to her. It still does. She adores him. He's just such a lovely man. And that's on a personal level. He didn't need to do that. He still did that. When we used to walk over to the stone and put the flowers down, he would walk over with Borough often, and to Pat, obviously. And they would chat, and they would talk about funny stories about Dad, or we would, and he always was interested. And he never rushed off. He would always stand and take his time. And it just, and that never ever stopped. All the way through we went there. All the years after Dad died.
And that must have been a tremendous support to you and your family.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because, Arsenal was our life as well. And we lost that, technically speaking. I mean, don't get me wrong, we go down there. But, it was really odd because your dad's not there. It's strange. It's a very surreal. You go there, you could represent Dad, or you do events. And he was always like, something's missing, because he wasn't there. He was very social person. He had so much to say. He was very chatty. He had great stories of he would talk about Shankly, he would talk about all different people he'd known or met, or like many of them, like Pat and George and all that. I'm sure they've all similar, had that life. And it was incredible. I remember having parties at home, and all the girls would be in one room, all the boys would be in the room with Dad. He would just be holding court, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And they'd all be listening to his stories, and they were great stories. I mean, even then, half of the girls would disappear in there again, because in the days prior to, some of them weren't as much into football. But it was, great, really,
And obviously, in terms of the sort of Wenger players who played under Wenger as well, there were some huge names who absolutely loved Geordie too. Dennis Bergkamp, I know.
Oh yeah, Dennis. I mean, Dad thought the world of him. I remember one story Dad told me that when I think they were in Colney, probably at lunch or whatever, and Ron Atkinson walked in. He went, "Hi, Big Ron." He went, "Hi, Geordie." And Dennis turned around to him and said, "Geordie, is there nobody don't know in football?" And that was Dad. He knew it, but again, he would go out of his way to be friendly. I'm sure that there wouldn't have been anybody that would have escaped him who came to the club during the time he was there. He would have made himself known. He would have stopped them, gone over, chatted, introduced himself. Not in a way of what I've done, but in a way of, "Oh, I'm Geordie, you need anything, just let me know," kind of thing. And that went on from all levels of Highbury, from the shops to the restaurants. They all, Dad was, had time for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it showed. Yeah,
absolutely, it showed, because that's one of the reasons people love him so much.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's amazing, like I said earlier on Twitter, when you hear some of the stories that people do, and when you read them, you think, I can believe that. You knew your dad, and he would definitely have done this or that. And it's wonderful. And obviously, every time I get some message or whatever, straight away to mum, "Oh, isn't that lovely?" And it really does help.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, we're talking in sort of first week in October. I don't even know the date actually. But obviously, the anniversary of his passing is coming up at the end of the month. I mean, if I can ask about it, what are your memories of that day?
I remember, I think it must have been about 2:30. I wasn't actually at work that day. I'd gone, was with Mum, and she got a phone call saying that Dad had collapsed at the training grounds, and that next of kin were needed, and it seemed all a bit kind of strange. Anyway, she contacted my brother. He came down. We all got in the car, and then on the way down, I think Tom spoke to Gary Lewin. And it's really weird because the car door was shut, but it's like I heard what he said, and I don't know whether it was because I was meant to hear it. It was very kind of strange at the time, and he said it didn't look good. When we got there, they took us into a room, and kind of they're taking you into a room. It's not, and they just said that he'd had a massive brain hemorrhage. we're not sure at this point, you know, what's going to happen or whatever. We're monitoring and seeing what can be done. At one time there was a chance that they could airlift him to Addenbrooke's because they've got a brain injury unit there in Cambridge. So it kind of seemed a bit positive. But then as the time kind of went on, and they did further tests, they found out that he was brainstem dead. Though he was just so fit, it just didn't add up. And when we went in the room, obviously he was on a lot of machines. It's quite it's really it's difficult to think of him like that. I mean, they did say that if he'd come out of it, he probably would have been paralysed from the neck down, which, I mean, really you wouldn't have wanted him to live, because he would have hated to live any day when he couldn't have played football, you know, in some form or coach. So obviously it was better, but he did have organ donation, so he helped a lot of people. And that all progressed very, you know, obviously once you agree to that, it moves very quickly. And then, you know, I remember going home and we were sitting, and I said to my mum, I'm not going to bed. If I go to bed, I'll wake up and I realise, that this is.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's there was a massive outpouring of love and affection to Geordie after that.
I mean, the phone, it went to overload. It was like you couldn't answer. Everybody was ringing. The phone was going mad, and the letters. We've got over 300, and it was when emails were first coming out, and they like a print, you know. The club was sending them, and then the postman used to say, "Oh my God, I've got a bag here, another bag," and the letters from all over the place. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, obviously that helped, and obviously in the early days, you know, before the funeral, it was very busy, and the club were amazing. You know, they organised, they sent people caterers down and stuff, and helped us, and obviously we organised the funeral, which was in, you know, the Catholic Church in Cambridge, a really big church. Everything just went perfectly, like as if it was meant to be. Sounds a bit strange, but
there were a lot of people there from the World Football Colney.
I mean, it was unbelievable, and a lot of them came back to the burial. You know, obviously the double team were there, and then came back to the house. You know, and funny enough, all the double team were in one of the rooms, and they were just chatting about Dad and the moment. You know, so it was, he would have liked that, having a drink and chatting about stuff. You know, he would have loved that. He wasn't one for, he didn't talk about death, or he didn't talk about that. He was more for living. He didn't, you know, he was so full of life. And obviously, you know, this is why I guess the book actually was started. After Dad died, my brother's partner was pregnant, and Dad was aware of it. He was actually a boy. His name was George, named after Dad. And I thought, I've got to get some memories of people that knew Dad. You know, before it's too late. I don't know whether it was because Dad died. I mean, touch wood, nobody else has, but it just felt like I better get some, you know, memories down while people still remember or whatever. And that kind of consumed a bit of my time, but I mean, I put it kind of on hold for a little while, because I would read something or hear something on the radio, and I'd write to them. I think Dermot Murnahan, the newsreader, mentioned that he was sad. He remembered watching Dad. So I wrote to him, and he wrote back to me at ITN and gave me a thing. Gary Wilmot, he made a lovely little spoke about something that had happened and experienced with Dad. And it was also just generally anybody like Martin Tyler, he was, you know, great, and obviously the double team. So I started to collect, little stories or memories. And then one thing that often came up was the lottery. My dad was convinced he was going to win the lottery. He used to run the Arsenal Syndicate one, And you know, we have got a bag full of lottery tickets. He wouldn't throw them away because he said if anybody complained and they didn't think he was pocketing the money. But Lee Dixon said, that Geordie was going to win the lottery and he's going to help everyone. So in other words, he wouldn't have had anything left, you know. But that was Dad. That is actually a funny story because he was always chasing people. They haven't paid me. They haven't paid me.
Got this vision of sort of Geordie running around all these.
He did. But that was Dad. He was just quite a comical person. But we've still actually. I was going to bring them today, but I thought we were much and loads of lottery tickets. Just wouldn't throw them out.
And he was full of good advice as well. I remember you were saying about he talked to Martin Keown about one of the cup finals.
I think it was in when they've done the double, and he said, you know, to stay on the pitch and, you know, take it in because, you know, it's gone so quick, and, you know, and you don't always appreciate it, do you? You know, you need to kind of savor the moment. And I think Dad probably, obviously, because he'd been there and done it, you know, goes so quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that moment as such, you know, to. It
goes quick as a fan.
I'm lucky enough. I was there in '98. I wasn't there. Great. What a team. And it was lovely. I mean, it's funny. You know, people say to me, "You must have been so proud of your dad." Yeah, without a doubt. But you know what? It was the warmth he gave. It was the person he was. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great footballer, but he just had so much time for everybody. You know, he gave so much. And you know, that is to me, I mean, I think the statement Arsenal put out when he died, I mean, a few people actually said to us afterwards, forget the honours, look at that, when we want to be remembered that way for the man that he was. And you know, the tributes are just incredible, you know.
I mean, there's a wealth of anecdotes there and stories of really warm sort of occasions where he's sort of helped people and touched people's lives. But you, as his daughter, what would you say if you could maybe sort of, I don't know, put you on the spot there, but one memory about your dad, or just something that would be Geordie?
So many to just actually come down to one. I think overall it was just the fact that he always made you feel better, in the sense that if you were down, you know, a hug, or just like, you know, he'd do this like wink, or, you know, I don't know, it's so hard to explain. It's just that love you felt, you know. Sorry, I get emotional, but
absolutely amazing, Jill.
It's hard what how it it affected us all. And my mum.
Yeah, absolutely, and I really, really appreciate your time today, Jill. It's been
no. I'm so probably gone off tangent.
No, not at all. It's wonderful listening to your story.
But I mean, obviously, Twitter means a lot to me because I'm remembering my dad, and you know, it's for his grandchildren. They never got to meet him, and that's one thing that hurts me. I think more than anything, that they missed out on that man. Not some, the football obviously, but the man.
Yeah, I mean, they say that sometimes, that you can be a great footballer and not particularly a wonderful person, but he seemed to be. He obviously was both, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was just so kind, and he was so generous in every aspect. He was always helping somebody. He was always doing so, always dropping so. My friend actually said to me, I remember when we lived in Leicester, I used to bike over to your house. Your dad would never let me go bike back. He'd always put, you know, the bike in the back. He was the same. We take out. He'd always have to pay for everybody. Everybody think he was a multi-millionaire, you know. But he was just like that. And he sounds too good to be true, but he seriously was just such a lovely man, and I think that just makes it so hard. And also with sudden death, it's a funny call to just suddenly just, you know, deal with it. You know, I don't know if you ever come to, you learn to cope with it, but, you know, deal with it as such. But it takes time.
And he was 56, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That's no age at all.
And he was so fit. I mean, how do you? It doesn't make any sense. You know, you go over and over and over the events of what happened and why, and then he had organ donation. He helped people to live lives, and you think to yourself, well, maybe it was just, I don't know. My dad. Well, this maybe going into another thing. He always believed when your time's up, it's up.
Right.
And I don't know. Maybe that's true. I don't.
Yeah.
You know, whether people believe in that or not. You know, that's probably maybe.
No, that's an interesting point. But in terms of the actual sort of anniversary, for want of a better phrase, of his passing, you normally go to Arsenal.
Yeah, we usually go to Colney around the time, because we put flowers down and go to his stone. And Sean, who's the manager at Colney, was a lovely man. You know, he's always obviously, you know, allowed us to go down and do that, and because obviously, you know, the players are training and stuff, you know, we go down there and sometimes, you know, we often have a bite to eat and stuff. And have a look around. Yeah,
it's good that the club to do that, and it's great. That
yeah,
sort of still...
absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, obviously, you know, obviously it was different when Arsene and everybody was there, because obviously they knew Dad.
Yeah.
But you know, it's still great. I mean, it's just, you know, different, isn't it? Yeah, and I suppose that the difference is probably going down with when Arsene was there, he knew Dad, so he had that connection. He understood what we were talking about. And you know, times change. I mean, we were lucky to have that for as long as we did, really. You know, it was a lot of years we went down there and talked about Dad, and probably heard the same story about 100 times. But you know, it was really, it was lovely, and you know, it's still nice that, you know, that we could go down there and see that. Yeah,
absolutely. And once an Arsenal man, always an Arsenal man.
God, yeah. How many die on their pitch?
Well, yeah.
God, crikey, you can't get any more, can you?
No, absolutely.
They literally live and die, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you think it's quite ironic, really. Anyway.
But Jill, honestly, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this. It just sounded like an incredible man, and an incredible dad, incredible human being, and I think it's a testament to him and yourself and your whole family that you're keeping his memory alive on top of his sort of football achievements as well. So good for you, and I wish you all the best. So
thank you
so much for your time. Cheers.
Thank you for letting me talk.
No, not at all. Cheers.